So what we're going to do is, the entire Vedanta we reviewed over the last few months. We talked about important Mahavakyas, and several of them we quoted from different Upanishads. But for today's discussion, I'm going to use Tat Tvamasi. Tvam means Jiva, individual. Let me see each one of us here. Tat means Ishwar, the Lord, God by any name. And Asi means equals to. So constellation of first 6 chapters that we studied so far talks about the Tvam factor, the individual Jiva. Remember, when you say Tat Tvamasi, it does not mean that Tvam becomes Tat, that means Jiva becomes Ishvara, but that statement says Tvam is already Tat, but you know it not. So that is basically this. So we're going to discuss overview the first 6 chapters today, and exactly about 40 minutes. Even though all the 3 topics are covered throughout 18 chapters, as I mentioned to you, the first 6 chapters talk about individuals. And here it starts, the first chapter, known as Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Arjuna's predicament, Arjuna's lamenting, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Now Arjuna represents the Jiva or the individual who is overwhelmed by the dharma-adharma conflict. His love, his reverence, his affections conflicted with his call of duty. Remember, Arjuna was not an ordinary individual. Arjuna was a person of high moral character. He had great accomplishments to his credit. He was an invincible archer of his time. His even teachers and elders admired him, adored him. He had done great penances, gotten boons from Lord Shiva himself. He had studied scriptures. In addition to that, nothing to do with it, he was an accomplished musician and dancer. Those things I do not know a thing about. He was a prince by birth, but as we discussed last time, Lee, but also by training. That's important. Guna Karma Vivagya. And in his time period, he was one of the most respected leaders of his community. He had come to the battlefield well prepared, well armed, in order to fight. He even asked Sri Krishna to take him to a spot where he could see those against whom he would be fighting. He realized that he had to fight against his teacher Dronacharya, his grandfather Bhishmacharya, both of whom he dearly loved and revered. He knew his proper duty, but his mind was overwhelmed with his affection for these elders and the teachers. Jiva, an individual who is subject to emotions, to right and wrong, to dharma and adharma, is also subject to sorrow, a typical Tvam problem, a problem that we, all of us, face. That opens up the second chapter, the Sankhya Yoga, basically the topic of knowledge. Arjuna was a practical, pragmatic, brilliant person, and he knew, regardless what we hear in Washington or around the world, no one really wins the war. Both sides always lose. He was not afraid of fighting. Rather, he was pretty confident of his prowess and his victory. And he said, even though I may get back the kingdom usurped from me, and may have all kinds of comforts and enjoyments at my fingertips, they would be all stained by blood of such great people. Rudhira pradigdaha bhogaha. Rudhira means blood. Pradigdaha bhoga. All the wonderful pleasures I'm going to have are going to be tainted by the blood of the people I love so dearly. If a person like Arjuna, a prince of valor, a man of courage, culture and education, gets overwhelmed with the problems of jiva, what about the other average individuals, such as any one of us in this room? Good to see you. Regaining kingdom at that moment was no longer important for him. He, as a human being overwhelmed with deep affections for those he would have to kill, could not see anything worthwhile about fighting. If one knows what is right and recognizes that as one's duty, what is to do when his personal values are at stake while performing that duty? Why has one to choose between love and duty? Saddened and conflicted Arjuna could not avoid the question as to what was truly worthwhile for anyone in human existence. He knew the answer to that question himself, because the culture that he was brought up in, the scriptures that he had carefully studied, and also because his own father, Pandu, had done exactly that by retiring to forest in search of knowledge, Aranyaka. He knew that the problem can only be solved by gaining the Shreyas. Shreyas means moksha. He also knew that in order to gain that knowledge, he had to become a committed disciple after finding an enlightened teacher. Arjuna knew that he would not find no better teacher than Lord Shri Krishna, and thus surrendered to him to gain that very knowledge, and said, Yachreyasya nishchitam bruhitan me shishyasteham shadhi mam tvam prapannam. I am your disciple. I pray unto you. Please instruct me, who has sought refuge in you, dear Shri Krishna. The discovery of the human problem of sorrow is the subject matter of Tvampada. Shri Krishna was waiting for this very moment. If you remember the discussion recorded where Vivekananda shows up in front of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and Ramakrishna says, where were you so long? I mean, I was waiting for you. So the teacher knows a disciple needs to come, and he is going to come. So Shri Krishna was waiting for this. But Arjuna, as a human being, blessed with free will, had to make that choice. Till that time, the teacher doesn't open his mouth. As a matter of fact, Arjuna was given the opportunity by Shri Krishna, with a touch of partiality earlier, to check him if he was ready to learn or not. Because when both Duryodhana and Arjuna walked in his room when he was resting after siesta, Duryodhana came early, but with his arrogance sat at the top of the head, and Arjuna came little later, in time, but later, sat down at his feet. Shri Krishna knew who came in first, but he said, I saw Arjuna first. Not that Shri Krishna did not notice who walked in the room first. He wanted to let him win the coin toss, and ask him whether he's going to receive the ball or he's going to kick out the ball. He said, you decide, what do you want? Do you want to have me on your side as a counselor, because I'm not going to fight for anyone, or you want to have mighty army fighting for your side? He really wanted to find out if he was ready or not. And that was the second time when Arjuna, having given a chance, Arjuna said, no, even if you're not going to fight, I just want you there. I just want you there maybe give me the directions, why don't you become a charioteer? So that is how the story started. So Sri Krishna knew that the devotee, the individual has to make a decision based upon the free will. Only when he was ready, then only the teacher opens his mouth. And when he said, I'm going to be your disciple, Sri Krishna realized that Arjuna was on the right trajectory for his spiritual growth. And sooner or later, he was going to be a disciple after giving him the first chance on the counselor. And when Arjuna finally surrendered, saying that, I'm going to be your disciple, then Sri Krishna opened his dialogue, opened up with the opening comment, which is something that everyone has to remember. I wish Vijay was here today, but I don't think he is here. He opened this by, you grieve for those who are not to be grieved for, yet you speak the words of wisdom. The wise do not grieve for those who are gone and who are not as yet gone. Ashocha-nanvashochatsvam pradnyavadansya bhasase gatasu nagatasuscha nanu shochanti pandita. Then he talked about Atma and how it is not subject to death at all. He indicated that Arjuna's conclusions about Atma were untrue, even though he had studied scriptures. Atma is not born. Atma does not die. Atma means our inner energy or awareness, consciousness. That's a Sanskrit word for that. It is unborn, eternal, and undergoes no change whatsoever. Is ever new. When the body is destroyed, the self is not destroyed, and thus he briefly touches the Tatpada, that means Ishwar section, between verses 10th and 24th of the second chapter. One of the things you can say, Najayate mriyate va kadachat nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. When Arjuna asked him to describe a wise person, Sthita Prajna, he described him as an ideal, well-grounded, enlightened individual. Sthita Prajna, enlightened and well-grounded, who is happy and content, having known his own true nature of fullness. He knows his true nature, his Atma, free from any limitations, and which is identical to Brahman, Ishvara by any name. Lord Sri Krishna said, when a person gives up all desires, as they appear in the mind, happy in oneself with oneself alone, Arjuna, that person is said to be well grounded and one of a certain state of mind, Sthita Prajna. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanye atmanatushtaha sthita prajnasya doshchati. The one who is not affected by adversities, who is without yearning for pleasures and is free from longing, fear and anger, is said to be the wise man whose knowledge stays unshaken. Dukkheshu anudvigna manaha sukheshu vigata spruha vita raga bhaya krodha sitadhir muni uchyate. Having given up all binding desires, a person who moves around in this world devoid of longing, without sense of limited I and mine, gains peace. Vihaya kamanya sarvan pumahuscharati nispruha nirmamo nirahankara sa shantim adhigachyati. Partha, this is what is meant by one's being in Brahman. Having gained this knowledge, one is not deluded ever. Remaining therein, even at the very end of this physical existence, one gains liberation. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati Sthitva Syamanta Kale Api Brahma Nirvanam Grucha. That concludes the second chapter. In the third chapter, the topic of karma, life of activity, karma yoga. Really speaking, the second chapter was complete. There was nothing more to be discussed. But that's exactly, you don't learn right away. The teacher is sitting there, is to repeat the same theme over and over again, go back to the same point over and over again, till finally the point is realized by the student. Again, Arjuna asks, if individual is indeed Brahman, as you say, Sri Krishna, this knowledge has to begin, right? If not that knowledge is essential for liberation, why not pursue as the only goal? Why do any action at all? Why not take sannyasa and pursue that goal? That is what Arjuna was thinking. For Arjuna, in his confusion, sannyasa and knowledge were identical. Life of renunciate, as soon as you become saffron robe, you become jnana. He acknowledged that if you were interested in anything else besides knowledge, of course you'll do the work. And since I'm not interested in anything else, why do the work at all? I just want to gain the knowledge. Arjuna also knew inside, that's the evaluation as a physician, that taking sannyasa was perhaps the only way to be absolved from performing various duties, and that the ritual of taking the vows of sannyasa is the ritual to release one from all the rituals and all other duties as well. So let's get on with the final ritual. To Arjuna, that seemed to be the most desirable cop-out to do under the circumstances, because he was no longer interested in kingdom. He was only interested in moksha, the ultimate state of liberation. It seemed to Arjuna that Krishna was contradicting himself, praising knowledge as the means of liberation, and at the same time asking him to fight. Yuddhaya yugatasjvara tatho yuddhaya ujjasva. Because Arjuna was confused, he asked Sri Krishna to decide which would be better for him. Would a life of activity, karma give moksha, or jnana would give him moksha? Arjuna was equating sannyasa as jnana. In order to clear up Arjuna's confusion, started Sita and Rama's Sambandha guy, started from square one again. In order to clear up Arjuna's confusion, Shri Krishna began again saying that he himself had introduced this twofold lifestyle in the beginning. Lokesmin dvividha nishtha pura prokta mayanaga jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yogina. One is called jnana yoga nivrutti marga. The other one is karma yoga pravrutti marga. One withdraws from all activities to pursue the knowledge. The other method, one performs activities with right attitude and pursues knowledge as well. As a matter of fact, Prasanna, the first two verses of Ishavasya Upanishad talk about exactly the same. Tena tyaktena bhunjita, that means life of renunciation. And kurvan neveha karmani jijivisheshata sama, by pursuing the life of activity, one should wish to live happily for 100 years. Basically summarizing the same thing in first two verses of Ishas. Pravrutti marga, nivrutti marga, jnana yoga marga, karma yoga marga. Krishna then described karma yoga through a quick overview of the second chapter. Whatever he had said in the second chapter, repeated with different words. He explained that karma yoga is not something opposed to moksha at all, nor is it opposed to the life of renunciation. They're exactly the same, different methods. Rather, it is another way of gaining moksha, a way that is available for those who are not prepared to live the life of sannyasi, a saffron robe renunciate. The lifestyle of sannyasa is not easy one, because in this lifestyle you do not have a field wherein you can express yourself and being able to express yourself is what exactly helps an individual to mature. We'll discuss the Kshetra Kshetratnya afterwards. Therefore, it is preferable to be in the field, the world, a life of relationships in it. Relationship means playing various roles in the world, whereby one is able to get rid of raga dvesha, the attachments and the aversions, likes and dislikes. So that was the third chapter. We emphasize that. That brings up to the fourth chapter, topic of renunciation of action by gaining knowledge. Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Then Sri Krishna told Arjuna what he had been teaching him had been coming down through ages. He had given this vision to humanity through great sages, and it had been passed on to other great sages and kings. He named a few of these enlightened sages and kings, such as Vivaswan, Manu, Ikshvaku. And even though this knowledge had been passed through the traditional teachings over centuries, thousands of years, through generations, this vision is not available for all, and of course, not everybody is ready to receive that vision as well. Arjuna was perplexed because he identified Sri Krishna as his contemporary, but then how could he have taught these sages and kings? The names seem to be at the very beginning of creation. He wanted to know who Sri Krishna really was. Krishna told him, Arjuna, both of us have had many births. I know all my births, whereas Arjuna, you do not. In other words, if Arjuna knew himself, his all previous births, he would be just as free as Krishna. Krishna told him that he was not an ordinary being or a jiva, and that he was an incarnation of Ishvara, in other words, an avatar. Even though he was available empirically in human form, he did not subject himself to the empirical rules of reality, and therefore he was not born of karma, because our births keep on coming back because of law and order, the action that we have performed in the past, incomplete work that brings you back. But he was not born because of karma. Why was he born? He was born because of the prayers of the people. Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushtatam. Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami. Because of the prayers, they need help at that time. From time to time, I take reincarnation, but not because as a jiva, because of previous karmas. Knowing he is never born, Shri Krishna said, I assumed a body. He told Arjuna that was not only true for Krishna, but that was true for Arjuna as well. If Arjuna knew that he was only assuming a body, that only a form is born and a name is given, Nama Rupa, we discussed last time, and reality he was never born, he would be same as Krishna. One has to know that I, Atma, is never born. This is what is meant by the term Jnana Karma Sannyasa, renunciation of karma through knowledge. He defined it further as giving up doership. This giving up of doership is not an action. In fact, that has to be understood. Knowing Atma as being free from doership, is Jnana Karma Sannyasa. Now, Karma Sannyasa is where simply the activities are given up, but the doership is still there. Hence, simply undergoing a ritual of sannyasa and putting on the saffron colored robes is not enough. True vision that you are not the doer has to begin. The person who says, I have done the last ritual, is mistaken, because he thinks he has done that ritual and he thinks he is the karta. And this karta, that feeling of doership, has to be given up. Doership is what exactly must be relinquished, giving up only the proper understanding. And thus the knowledge is passed on by the guru that turns knowledge passed on by the guru into the wisdom in the minds of the disciple. Strictly speaking, only a person who is able to see actionlessness, which is the nature of Atma, actionlessness, in the midst of all activities, and sees in activity all the action, he alone sees the truth. Karmanya yah karma paschet, karmani akarma yaha paschet, akarmani cha karma yaha, sabuddhiman manusheshu sayukta krutna karma krut. Thus the one who is able to see the absence of doership in the midst of the activities is the real sannyasi. No, near jnana karma sannyasi. He gave a personal example. He said, Chaturvaranyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagasha tasya kartaram apimam vidhi akartaram avyayam. This fourfold grouping of people, a division based on duties and qualities, inherent nature and division, was created by me. Even though I am its author, know me to be the non-doer, ever changeless. Having elaborated this knowledge and emphasized the need to inculcate this wisdom, Sri Krishna told Arjuna to get up and take up the karma yoga. Tasmata dhyana sambhutam rutsnam jnanasinatmana chitvainam sanshayam yogam atishthostishta bharata. Why did he make that recommendation? Because the activity or karma can only be given up in the terms of knowledge, and karma yoga would prepare Arjuna to gain that knowledge in Lord Sri Krishna's judgment. Sri Krishna felt that Arjuna needed to overcome his likes and dislikes, attachments and aversions first by pursuing the path of karma yoga. The teacher knows what the student needs to learn first. The doctor knows what the patient actually needs and not what the patient just saw on the recent TV ad. Because the symptoms may be the same, but the doctor knows what particular medications to be given. The teacher recognized that he's attached to his teacher and his reveres, his grandfather, and those attachments are taking away from his recognition of what his duty is. So that's why he recommended on the prescription pad, you get down, get to work, get your aversion and attachments out. And that opens up the 5th chapter, Sannyasa Yoga, topic of renunciation. Having given up the same recommendation to take up the life activities, pravrutti marga, karma yoga pravrutti marga, Arjuna says that he is not confused, but asks the same question using different words. Shri Krishna, of the two, please tell me once for all, which one is better? Karma yoga pravrutti marga or sannyasa yoga nivrutti marga? So he says, Sannyasam karmanam Krishna punar yogam cha samshashi yachreya etayorekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. As one can see, Arjuna is beating up the same drum, harping on the same string of doubt. Okay. Lord Sri Krishna told him again, teacher never gets upset. Both lifestyles, life of activity and life of renunciate, will lead to liberation or moksha. But sannyasa cannot be of any use to a person who is not prepared for it. In reality, the person who neither hates nor longs for anything should be known always as a renunciate, regardless of the lifestyle that is chosen. Neyasya nitya sannyasi yo na dveshti na kankshati. So, he also stated that the desired end or moksha is gained by sannyasins is also gained by the karma yogis. The one who sees that knowledge and karma yoga as one, that person alone sees the real truth. Yat sankhyayi prapyate sthanam, yat sankhyayi prapyate sthanam, tad yogairapi gamyate, ekam sankhyam cha yogam cha yat pashyati sapashyati. Like Shri Krishna says, sannyasa is very difficult to attain without karma yoga. But the one who is capable of reasoning and is committed to the lifestyle of karma yoga gains Brahman before too long. So don't worry about it. I'm not going to give this medication for too long. It's going to come to you pretty quickly. Sannyasastu mahabhayo, sannyasastu mahabaho, dukkhamaptuma yogataha, yoga yukto munir brahma, nachirena adhigacchati. It will be very quickly. This shot will be over very quickly. Just take this medicine first. He continued by saying that the one who is endowed with karma yoga, yoga yukta, is the one whose mind is purified, vishuddhatma, and therefore there is a mastery over the sense organs, jitendriya. This is the preparation needed for the knowledge to become clear to the person. Then such person knows that self is the self of all beings, sarva bhutatma bhutatma, and all beings are in the self. As soon as this happens, even though he continues to perform actions, the person is not affected by those actions. He does not receive any merit or demerit, papa or punya, from the actions performed as an average person would incur. So karmas don't incur. That is so because he has understood, become a part of his personality, his wisdom base, that he is not the real doer. So he's not going to get any merit or demerit. That doer is only God Almighty. The Atma is always the non-doer. He has no longer any doership. This is exactly what is called renunciation of action by knowledge. Yodo yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma vichendriya sarva bhutatma bhutana kurvan api na lipyate. Karma yoga and sannyasa is the preferred batting order in most cases. One should not become a professor without proper training. Remember Tegiyali, medical schools? One cannot be sannyasi in name only. In reality, it means giving up actions in terms of knowledge. There is no literal giving up of actions. Only thing that you are giving up is doership in that knowledge and a wisdom that the real doer was never you and never would be. Is only God Almighty. Karta Karavita Deva, Marathi. Karma yoga is not a technique or a discipline. Instead, it is a cognitive change in one's vision, born of this knowledge. This vision allows one to recognize and appreciate identical divinity in everyone. Thus, for the enlightened Pandits, with due humility, everybody is equally divine. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavi hastini shunishchaiva swapakecha panditaha samadarshana. The chapter concludes when Sri Krishna once again confirmed sannyasa as the pursuit of moksha alone. Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Viditatma is coming in May. For sannyasins, those who are free from desire and anger, whose mind is under control, who know the self, there is liberation both here and hereafter. Kama krodha viyuktanam, free of desire, anger, and yatinam yatachesanam. Yata means controlling the mind, whose mind is under control, who know the self, there is liberation. Abhito Brahma Nirvanam. Abhito as well as hereafter, both here and hereafter. But how does sannyasi, the knower of Sankhya, regardless be he a householder or a saffron robe renunciate, prepare his mind in that way. And with what? In the last 3 verses of the 5th chapter, he introduces the methodology of bringing about this cognitive change called dhyanam or meditation. And that's where the final 6th chapter we'll discuss today to conclude. Atma Sanyama Yoga on meditation. Meditation, as we discussed in the last session, when was it? 31st of January, how time goes. To recognize your own true identity. You're wise and also renunciate if you physically engage in action, but at the same time understand that self or your true nature performs no action. A karma yogi who has overcome attachments and aversions and works in conformity of the universal values, dharma, and performs action that is to be done without depending on the results of the actions, is in reality is already a renunciate. The individual who has taken the vows of a renunciate is saffron robe, but has simply abandoned the actions that need to be done daily and has yet not reached that state of maturity by overcoming attachment aversion, is not a true renunciate. See a lot of them coming from India as saffron robe, but they have a long way to go. Renunciation is recognizing your own true nature, which is full, complete, and never changing. The ignorance and error that cause you to be estranged from this truth can be removed only by knowledge, and you can gain that knowledge through the teachings of an enlightened guru who himself has received it through the lineage of enlightened teachers, starting from Lord Sri Krishna in the Gita discussion, or Lord Sadashiva Arambat from Lord Shankara in the original word. Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmat Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. You may have various experiences of joy and fullness, but they will not give you the knowledge that you are Satchidananda, meaning you are radiant awareness that's immortal, eternal, and limitless, overflowing with every possible emotion, including joy, happiness, and contentment. In any moment of profound happiness, why? The duality of knower and known, seer and the seen disappears. And in that moment of ecstasy, the desire to be limitless is fulfilled. There is nothing other than the real you, because you're connected with that within you, divinity within. This experience of fullness is not due to any object or the situation, but because you're free from taxing, demanding, desiring, judging mind, as we were talking on what, Friday? If you engage in action with right attitude, you will gain that contemplative mind. Your mind becomes purer as you accept every result from the pleasure of prasannata, considering that outcome as the divine grace, prasada. Your likes and dislikes diminish, and your mind becomes free of reactions. Eventually, you recognize that your mind is naturally contemplative. Even though this development of mind takes time, there is no reason for self-condemnation. If others condemn you, forget it. Do not accept their judgment. If you refuse to abandon this negative judgment about yourself, I have a news for you. Even God cannot help you. So Lord Sri Krishna advises Arjuna, may you uplift yourself. May one not destroy or degrade one, for the self alone is one's benefactor. The self alone can be one's own enemy. Uddaret atmanatmanam atmanam avasadayet atmaiva yatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmana. Clear knowledge of the self, Atman, is liberation from limitation. Your nature is limitlessness. Learning to connect with your own self and remaining connected, like charging the iPhone at night, is the purpose of meditation. To break the habit of seeing yourself as limited, follow the advice of Lord Sri Krishna to engage in the regular practice of meditation. Meditation has been defined as an unbroken stream of thought, focused on an object, like the oil that is poured from one vessel to another in a continuous flow. The purpose of meditation is to still the modifications of the mind. The mind can be compared with a lake we enjoy every day at home. The mind can be compared to the lake which is full of waves. The people are driving boats. And the waves which are created, in this case, the waves are related to multiple desires that come to the mind. And because of that, we are not able to see our true nature, which you only can see early in the morning when you go to the dark. You can see the bottom of the lake, which is nothing than yourself. That's exactly what happens when you're doing in deep meditation. We don't see the innermost self because of multiple waves, which are basically equivalent to the waves. By the steady practice of meditation, one can quell the waves and attain to perfect calmness, which nothing in the world can disturb. Our innermost pure and divine self becomes crystal clear. As the meditation deepens, the aspirant is blessed with initially subtle and later on intense perceptions, which makes your mind tranquil. It can be compared to the unflickering flame of a lamp burning in the windless spot, not outside what is blowing today, in this windless spot. Yatha dipo nivatastho nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmana. The seeker is constantly seeking to discover one's true identity and asks, who is he who is expressing so constantly through his own body? Only through the transcendental experience can the seeker achieve these direct moments of realization. Consciousness is the single living energy that plays through all the creatures and inanimate creation and is identical to God. God is only the substratum from which the entire creation or Jagat has arisen, in which the universe exists and plays, and into which alone ultimately all names and forms will resolve. Jnana vijnana tuptatma kutastho vijitendriya itya yukta ityuchyate yogi samalostasma kanchana. This consciousness is our true nature and the only subject. Everything else is the objects that it perceives. Once having reached this state of ecstasy, for such an enlightened individual, nothing in the material world becomes an attraction, be that be a clump of clay or a chunk of gold. Indeed, the most exalted happiness, sukham uttamam, reaches the person as a result of contemplation or meditation. This joy is such that it cannot be compared with any happiness or joy that we know or describe. It is fullness, the very nature of the self, Atman or Brahman. Upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhutama kalmasham. The one who meditates free from conflicts, born of adharma, kalmasha, always uniting his mind with the object of contemplation, easily gains absolute happiness, born of contact with recognition of identity with Brahman. Sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. Consciousness is not located any particular place. I told you there is no post office box for that consciousness. Everything instead is located in that consciousness. Not simply the living beings, inert objects, but even the planets and the stars that you see up in the sky, including all the dimensions known and unknown, including time and space, which lead to time, name and form. Lord Sri Krishna concludes by saying, it is my vision, is my judgment, that one who has Shraddha, with mind absorbed in me, contemplates on me alone, he alone is the most exalted amongst yogis. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam sayukto tamo mata. Here yogi means an individual, Prasanna, who has attained perfection in the shape of even-mindedness, and the mind which is totally absorbed in God, Parmeshwar by any name. There is no duality whatsoever. He comes to live in that spirit, often expressing in the manner by helping others without any bias or prejudice, even those who harm you. He comes across as a magnanimous individual, full of compassion and the greatest repository of the highest knowledge. He expresses radiant awareness and absolute fullness through every possible positive emotion, including love, compassion, joy, and happiness. He raised that question, I'll raise it again in conclusion. How long does it take to hit that mark and arrive at the goal? It depends. No time limit can be set. Everything depends on Shraddha, which means absolute confidence in the outcome, which means must pursue the goal regardless. Intense longing to reach that goal. An affirmative and positive attitude towards life. You cannot have negative thoughts at all, because that's poisonous than worst possible poison. God is omniscient and knows everything. We can draw His sympathy only through self-surrender and humility of spirit. What stands between the man and God is this man's own making, his stubbornness and his destructive doubts. Professor, it doesn't make any sense. You don't make any sense. His stubbornness of mind and his destructive doubts. The only key that can unlock the door of divine realization is a steady, persistent meditation. All progress proceeds through ups and downs. After initial progress, the progress might suddenly cease. Do not lose heart. Persevere. Continue a practice of meditation and reach your goal. I reminded you last time, sometimes you'll find an instant success in certain area. Don't get lost in the maze, in that excitement. Continue on the goal. Keep the eye where you want to go, an ultimate goal. The value of meditation will be felt when the mind is wholeheartedly and continuously absorbed in the thought of God, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. In the depth of meditation, the senses will be still. There will come the sweetness of union. The aspirant will feel the presence of God in the inner sanctuary of the heart, and all the desires and aspiration will find their highest fulfillment in the joy of divine communication. Om Tat Sat. Okay. Thank you.
It's a very good summary of the 6 chapters. I was looking at chapter 2, which you said contains the essence of the whole Gita, which is true. I particularly like Dhyayato Vishayan Purusaha Sangasteshu Pajayate, because that kind of tells you where you can go wrong in understanding your true nature. It all comes down to attachment. That's the hardest part of a human being. You love somebody. It needs a little, You love somebody and you want to be there with them, you want to help them. At the same time, you shouldn't be attached to them. That's a very hard concept to, particularly for the children, the grandchildren. You can't be attached to them. It's a very hard concept. And so I think it requires very deep thinking. And I am convinced that the only way that you're going to learn it is by experience. By experience, I mean, if something untoward happens, and then you have to examine yourself. Why did it happen? What am I going to do? That's when Gita comes to help you. Otherwise, it becomes an academic discussion within our own mind. And secondly, in chapter 2, Krishna seems to be saying that every human being faces choices. Whether you are a judge, should I sentence him to death, or should I give life imprisonment? There you have to be very objective. Just because the prisoner or the convict happens to be the son of a friend should not influence his judgment. Just because the patient is the son of a friend should not influence the judgment of the doctor who is treating the patient. It's got to be the same. Which means that every field that you are in places upon you certain restrictions or certain boundaries. And Krishna is saying you have to operate within that boundary. And for Arjuna, because he was a warrior, because the war was inevitable, he had no choice but to fight. And he points out the consequences of not fulfilling one's duties. You may feel good by not fulfilling your duty, but you do not understand the repercussions of that decision on the rest of the people, your family, your friends, your surroundings. Therefore, what we really have to understand from Krishna's teaching is, in every kshetra, you have choices to make. And depending upon the particular kshetra that you are in, you have to exercise your judgment very carefully. And in Arjuna's case, Krishna was there to advise him. And in the intern's case, the resident advises him. In the resident's case, the professor advises him. So Krishna is telling us, there is no reason for despair, there is no reason to be hopeless. You always can go to people who know better and seek their advice. And that's I think a very good thing to do. Because once you get the notion, the idea of giving up doership, I can repeat within my own mind, I am not the doer, I am not the doer, I am not the doer. Even saying I am not the doer is not giving up doership.
You're saying it.
You're saying?
You think you're saying it.
Yeah. So the concept of doership is a subtle concept. And the only way that doership can be given up is, as you pointed out, to perform every action as an offering to God and receive the results of your action as a prasad from God. Once you have that habit completely in your daily actions, then the idea of doership automatically drops away. So many of these things are, some of them are not deliberate on your part, it just comes naturally to you. So that we have to practice. And to practice that, as you said, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, you need humility. If you're Donald Trump, you're never going to get it. You need humility. So that notion of giving up the doership it seems to me is very key to get rid of the papa and the punya. That's the one that binds you to samsara. To get away from the samsara, you have to get rid of papa and punya. That should not affect you, and that doesn't affect you, as Dr. Sane said, if you do not have the sense of doership. So that notion of I has to be given up.
I think Prasanna rightly pointed out how you can unravel yourself, and we have repeated in the past how we can bring ourselves together. When you started talking about dhyayato vishayan pusa sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti brahma smriti pramoshat buddhinasha buddhinashat pranashashi. That means by getting attached to a particular object, your desire for that object continues to get attachment to that. If you don't get it, you get angry. You get angry, fuming anger makes you forget. That delusion leads you to misunderstand, forget what is right and what is wrong, and that ultimately destroys you. The key is to recognize those human frailties that exist and working on them and not getting upset because you fell down. Just get up and start again. Recognize it's going to take some time. But having reached a certain level of understanding, that's why you have to talk about how you maintain it. And that, of course, Bhaja Govindam, 9th verse. Satsangatve nitsangatvam, nitsangatve nirmohat, nirmohatve nishchalatatvam, nishchalatatve jivanamukti, Bhaja Govindam. So basically, once you start developing those values, make sure you maintain good company. If you maintain a good company, a good people who are similar good-minded people, then you'll understand what is not right and what is right. So you'll get detachment. You won't get attracted to the material things. And once you realize that, then your delusion about material things will gradually disappear. And once your delusion starts moving away, you'll understand which remains permanent, Nishchala Tattvam. And if you remain in constant connection with which is constantly permanent within you, you live as a liberated individual. So he's talking about unraveling that you rightly mentioned, Prasanna. And this basically gives you a formula, having gathered yourself together, how you build up. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kausachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Dvadashodhyayaha Saguna Bhakti Yoga Arjuna Uvacha Evam Satata Yuktaye Paryupasate Ye Chapyaksharamau Vyaktam Tesham Ke Yoga Vittama Shri Bhagwan Uvacha Vyavesha Mano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopeta Te Me Yuktatama Mata Ye Tvaksharamanirudesham Avyaktam Parayupasate Sarvatra Gamachintyam Cha Kutastham Achalam Dhruvam Sandhyamyendriya Kramam Sarvatra Samabuddhaya Te Prapnuvanti Mameva Sarvabhutaite Rata Kleshodikatarasham Avyakta Sakta Chetasam Avyakta Higatir Dukham Dehavaptiravapyate Yet Sarvani Karmani Mai Sanyasya Matpara Ananyena Yogena Mam Dhyayanta Upasate Teshamaham Samuddarta Mrityu Samsara Sagara Bhavami Nachirat Partha Mayeva Manadatsva Mai Buddhim Niveshaya Nivasishyashi Mayeva Ata Udvam Na Samshaya Ata Chittam Samadhatum Na Shaknoshi Mai Stiram Abhyasa Yogena Tato Mamichhatum Dhananjaya Abhyasepya Samarthosi Matkarma Paramo Bhava Madarthamapi Karmani Kurvan Siddhimavapsisi Athaitadapya Shaktosi Kartum Madyogamashita Sarva Karma Phalatyagam Tatah Kuryatatmavan Shreyo Hidyanam Abhyasat Jnana Dhyanam Vishishyate Dhyanat Karma Phalatyagas Tyagat Shantirantam Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam Maitra Karnevacha Nirmamo Nirahankara Samadukkhasya Kakshami Santushta Satatam Yogi Yatatma Dhranishchaya Mayyarpita Mano Buddhir Yo Mad Bhakta Same Priya Yasmano Lokanno Dvijate Chaya Harsha Marsha Bhayo Dvaigai Mukto Yassacha Me Priya Anapeksha Shuchir Daksha Udasino Gatavyata Sarvaramba Parityagi Yo Mad Bhakta Same Priya Yo Narishyati Nadveshi Nashochati Nakankshati Shubha Shubha Parityagi Bhaktimanya Same Priya Samashatrau Cha Mitre Cha Tatha Manapamanayo शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु समसङ्गविवर्जितः तुल्यनिन्दास्तुतिर्मौनी सन्तुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेतस्थिरमतिर्भक्तिमान् मे प्रियो नरः ये तु धर्म्यामृतमिदं यथोक्तं पर्युपासते श्रद्धाना मत्परमा भक्तास्तेतीव मे प्रियाः। ओम तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्म विद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे भक्तियोगो नाम द्वादशोऽध्यायः। श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु। शुभं भूयात्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Thank you.